I'm Josh Harris, Associate State Director for AARP Illinois. We're so glad to welcome you to this exciting event. AARP knows this pandemic has been trying on us all, threatening the health and financial security of millions of Americans 50 plus. That's why it is our pleasure to bring you this night of levity, some fine art to help us all recharge, connect, and address some of the social isolation we know people are feeling at this time. It's our way of reminding you that AARP Illinois is here for you.
All right. Welcome to the Southside Community Arts Center. My name is Monique Brinkman Hill, and I'm the executive director here. I have the opportunity and the excitement of being here with the artist, Jesse Howard, and we're going to have the opportunity today to walk through his exhibit, The Spirit of Community. Jesse, thanks for being here.
Hey, I'm thrilled to death to be here.
Well, what we want to do today is to kind of have an opportunity to walk through the show, to have Jesse talk a little bit about some of the pieces that are in the show. And so you, not having a chance to be here today or to see the show, will have an opportunity to look at it whenever you're ready. One of the things that I know artists usually have, and that is a artist statement to really talk about who they are as an artist. And so I would like for you to kind of share with the audience today, what is your philosophy as an artist? What do you want people to know about your work?
Okay, well, let me just say this, is that my philosophy changes periodically. A lot of times it just changes with the different exhibitions, or it's a reflection of the time that I'm in. So for this particular time, meaning the pandemic that we're in and such a toxic political environment that we're in, all of that has influenced me and how I approach my work. And like this particular one here, the young millennial, and you can see that she has a mask on, and she has the braids and the colors in the hair, and that's pretty much what I was looking for. And I've been taking a lot of young millennials lately, photographing them off the street, some of them in Starbucks, wherever I could, whatever interests me at the time. And I take a photograph. I usually ask for permission to get the photograph, and I begin to work. So I'm always conceptualizing what exactly I want to do, but not to the point that I can tell you this is exactly what I want to do. Once I do that, I get bored, And as we walk through the exhibition, you'll be able to see the spirit itself of this, not only this Bronzeville community, but also throughout Chicago.
These images capture way beyond Bronzeville. I mean, they are universal when we're talking about community, as we'll see when we walk through this. And certainly when I think about that, I'm thinking about one of the pieces that we're going to follow up on, and that is the piece that you said that everyone was built on, and that was the former slave woman. So yes. I'm looking forward to that. The next thing, though, we get to talk about is some of the students at Proviso East High School. Tell me a little bit about how that came to be and this powerful piece.
Well, I tell you what's interesting is that I don't normally do collaborations, and but I really am interested in what's going on with young people, not only just high schoolers, but also just young people in general. How are they thinking? What do they do? They own their computers so much. They're always online. They're always on social media. But there's also a segment of them that still like doing graffiti on the streets. So I was thinking, why not approach them? So I wanted some inner city kids, but I wanted a diverse group of kids. And that's what this particular piece is about. It's a young millennial here that I found on the streets. He was somewhat schizophrenic. He couldn't stand still. He was about maybe 50 pounds smaller than the picture here. But I wanted to show a different side of him. So I was able to get him just to pose for a moment, and I was able to photograph him. And after that, I contacted Proviso East High School in Maywood, Illinois, and I spoke with the chairman of the art department and the principal. And what came out of that is I wanted to make it clear with the principal that they cannot edit anything that the kids said. And same way with the chair of the department. You cannot edit this. And they agreed. So I got, just went and bought some large sheets of paper. I put the paper throughout the cafeteria. And like the chair of the department was telling me, is that if you really want to meet these kids and really understand what they're talking about, go where they hang out, and that's the cafeteria. But anyway, to make a long...
Some things never change.
Oh, no, it really hasn't from when we were kids. So this is a picture that's a combination of African Americans, Latinos, young white kids, and the trick was to get them to go to stand up before their peers and to start writing. But to make a long story short, because this took me like 3 months, I had to give a talk, I had to get their confidence. But once I was able to get one of them to start writing, that was it. And some of the things that they wrote here, they told me I don't even want to know what it is. So, but I tell you what was really interesting is that if you look at right here, the first thing that they wrote on here was help. And to me, that was a cry for help or attention in the school. The second thing that I noticed was right here at the bottom, there's a suicide prevention number.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people, adults or kids, know what a suicide hot number is? I know at 14, I didn't know about a suicide hotline. But anyway, that's what this piece is pretty much, to some degree, is reflecting their thoughts and what they're going through.
And you talked earlier about this moment in time, and so that was a moment in time for them. And it is painful to think about our kids needing the suicide prevention number, and love hurts and help, but it's important that we understand that as parents, as community people, as individuals who have an empathy for our youth. So thank you. I'm glad you were able to capture this. And finally, I want to ask, what was their response when they saw the ultimate piece?
Well, I'm going to tell you, they really liked it, because I showed this particular piece at Robert Morris University, and I was able to get a tour of the university for them. Okay. And there was a reception. And they came to reception, they saw the work, and they saw what they did. And they were kind of blushing and nervous all at the same time. But I felt really, really good about that, allowing them to leave, from their home, to come downtown Chicago and to see what they wrote being displayed.
Outstanding. Who knows? You may have contributed to the next artist.
Hey. That would be great.
So our next piece is another young lady.
Well, you know what? This is called, if I remember correctly, just red hair. She's still a young millennial. She's similar to Dancing with Braids. I was still trying to capture, the hair. I mean, it was just very interesting to me to have that much hair on her head, and it's all done in red.
So I got to tell you, aside, my granddaughter, who is 6, came in and saw the show, and she immediately said, I like that one and I like this one. So I thought, okay, my baby has good taste. So she immediately was drawn to the color in the hair and that whole concept. So it appeals.
Well, but not only that, Monique, is that I want that 6-year-old to be able to see that. I want those 15-year-olds. I want the average person to be able to see my work, but at the same time, I don't want the work to become too illustrative. Yes. I'm still looking for fine art. So my job, and to solve a problem that I have when I'm conceptualizing my work, is to deal with things that have a little bit more abstractionness in the way that I display it, but at the same time, it's not so complicated that a 6-year-old cannot come up and say, you know what, I identify with that.
I like that.
So that's a good I mean, that made me feel good, just you saying
Yeah.
that she could see that.
Yep.
And at the same time, if we get a curator or a gallerist from any museum and they come in and there's something there for them also.
Absolutely. So this next piece has created quite a buzz. You did it in 3 pieces, 3 separate pieces, but it's all part of one series. Can you tell me a little bit about these pieces?
Yeah, this is it's called The Emerging Man, and what was interesting is that this is a young man that was at Starbucks, and that's usually where I go to hide out and just chill out. And it was late in the evening, and I saw this young man, and he's only like 26 years old, and I was attracted to his braids, the way he was braiding his hair, because I could tell it was not done professionally, but it had a certain character about it. But what was interesting to me is that here's a young man, 26 years old, trying to get to a shelter. So our conversation was short because he says, I got to get to a shelter like at 7 o'clock. And I'm thinking, man, you know, that's really not, I mean, it just bothered me that someone that young, you know, is still in a shelter. So I wanted to do different things with him. I wanted to show him coming out of, you might say, an abyss, coming forward and getting sharper in focus and even more sharper here. I don't want to say everything because I don't want to lead you or the audience to, you know, just say what, you know, what you might think I want to hear, but just for you to react to the picture. And that's why I have different stages of him here.
Well, it certainly caused a lot of people to pick a favorite, and certainly a few folks who said, I'd love to have the whole series if I had the space, and certainly could
we want
bring
those.
it home. We want those, right? So I think this piece, certainly you have something there. You said the hope implied is the strength of voice and action to spark change. That was, that speaks to almost this whole show.
Yes.
It really does. There's so much to see, so I'm moving us along just because I know we've got a lot to talk about, and I know our audience wants to hear about each piece. They want to have an opportunity to see the piece. This is the young lady with blue hair. Tell me a little bit about this image.
But she's just sassy. This is a young lady, once again, I caught on the street. I had to convince her to pose for me. And she did, and I took a bunch of shots. And I was interested in her fingernails. They exaggerated, so I even exaggerated even more so along with her fingers. And I was just intrigued with the color of her hair. I mean, you know, that just what's going on. That's the aesthetics of our time.
Yep.
Red hair, blue hair, whatever. And
each generation.
yeah,
Each generation has something that resonates with them, and you know, if you're not in that generation, sometimes you feel like, oh, why did they do that? But if you look back into your generation, there was things that we did, certainly.
Like an afro.
An afro
That
at
was
the
a big
time.
deal.
That was a big deal
deal.
because it went so far against the norms of that time. But
Yes.
now it's just commonplace. People wouldn't think twice if they saw someone with an afro. But at that time, it was a revolutionary thought process. So this next gentleman, tell me a little bit about this piece.
Once again, it is still just a reflection of the community. That's all it is. It's a young man I saw on the street. Matter of fact, he's a little shorter. He's a little, I shall say, obese. So what I did is I had my own image of him. So I just changed the proportion of his head and his hair. But to me, he represents pretty much this particular generation. You know, my job is not to judge.
Oh, no,
You know,
absolutely not.
I'm not, you know, and by me being, you know, middle-aged, going to be a senior here, I'm more interested in learning about what's going on, how they think. So I try to get out of my way and just watch and observe them.
And Jesse, this next piece was one that when I first saw it, I thought of someone very regal. I almost thought of the imagery of a lion because it was just a very powerful piece for me. And certainly with the red, goatee. Tell me a little bit about this piece.
Well, if you notice, both these pieces kind of complement each other. You might say a elder brother from the neighborhood dealing with a young millennial from a different generation. I just wanted to show that. I just wanted to show the strength of African American males that's in the neighborhood. This is something that I think that we need more of. This is the type of African American male that I ran across as a kid. One way or the other, they're going to steer you right. You may not like what they say, but they're not going to tell you anything wrong.
Yeah, they have your best intentions. And I think I really like that you did put the two of these together because the generations need each other.
Yes.
This is not separate and distinct. It's actual community. We need to hear from each other. The elders need to hear from the young, and the young need to hear from the elders. And I don't know how much of that is taking place, but it needs to happen more frequently.
Yeah, it really should. I mean, like I said, in this particular time that we're in, everyone is trying to be so politically correct. These guys are not trying to be politically correct.
No, they're not.
No.
They're not. Absolutely.
They're going to tell you straight exactly what they think.
And what you often need to hear.
Yeah.
So
if you don't want to hear the truth, don't ask them. Matter of fact, you don't even have to ask them. If they see you do something wrong, the guys are going to go up to you and say, "That's stupid. Don't do that."
Yeah. And of course, that doesn't always resonate when someone comes at you in that way. So that's the
time that we're
That's the yin and the yang of that, of trying
Yes.
to figure out how do we communicate with one another.
Yeah.
Now? Yeah. Oh, okay. So Jesse, here are 3 very powerful pieces. Tell me about each of them.
Well, this is School Days, and it's a young millennial. Obviously, she's on her way to school. She got rollers in her hair. And I just thought that was interesting because my mom's generation, you would never catch them out with rollers in their hair. This particular generation, this is cool. I mean, this is, hey, I'm gonna take a picture of this and I'm gonna put this in social media. Look at what I'm doing, So that's pretty much what she's about. Matter of fact, if you look real close, like at the hair and everything up in this area, it comes across a little bit Asian-like. And I did that intentionally. I wanted that kind of exaggeration of the hair and what they call that. I don't know if they are the mistress of some of the Japanese soldiers doing that, concubines.
Okay.
Yeah, if you look at their hair, that was in my mind as I was thinking about doing the hair in the rollers.
Okay. And then this piece here with the yellow scarf.
Yeah, this is what this guy, Urban Wisdom. This is a brother that I saw in Colorado in a shelter. And he was walking around like a peacock. He had his little yellow scarf on and his white scarf on his head. And he just thought he was all of that. And I asked him, could I take a picture? He said, yeah. So I took some liberties as an artist on how I wanted to approach this. But I'm quite pleased with the way it came out. And if you notice throughout the exhibition, you see some of my hairs exaggerated in hands. And I kind of like that.
I also like the fact that you said he's in a shelter and he felt a confidence about him. And so to me, that means that he didn't lose who he was despite his circumstances. So I don't know if that was the reality of that, but that certainly speaks to me about the power of the Spirit, that you, no matter what's going on, you still have the wherewithal to be confident and to feel good about yourself. So I love it. This next piece, I actually love her face. I think it feels like many of us right now through this 2020. Tell me a little bit about this piece.
Well, this is called, after the shower and before bed. And I just wanted an everyday woman, just preparing to go to bed. And I really had fun doing this. Just, if anything, just dealing with 2 different types of mediums.
Okay.
I'm dealing with a powder medium, a chalk medium, which is charcoal, and I'm dealing with acrylic paint. Okay. And as you know, water and a dry substance don't really mix well. But I was able to, find a way to solve that problem. And that, for me, it turned out exactly the way I wanted it. It has a lot of volume to it, but yet it's accented with the paint.
You just said something, and I want to make sure that I address that. Tell me a little bit about the medium that you usually work in. You said charcoal, a little bit of acrylics. Is that your primary medium?
Yes, as of late.
As of late, okay.
As of late. It's just something about using a wash, whether it's an acrylic wash or a watercolor wash, and charcoal. It just has a certain aesthetics that I'm looking for. It's so organic, you know. And the whole time that I'm working it, I'm always thinking about a cigarette. You know, the front part of a cigarette. You know, when you smoke it and you're done with it, and it becomes so dark in blackness and in gray, but yet it's so fragile.
Okay.
Same way when they're taking tape off of mummies, it has those different tones in there, but yet it's so fragile. If you touch it, it'll fall apart.
Gotcha.
That aesthetic is what I'm looking for.
Okay.
Is
okay.
when you look at these.
All right. So as we move forward, this piece says the red and green of Black empowerment represent the African American colors created by Marcus Garvey, give a race of people dignity, those who've been denied their identity for centuries. Tell us about this piece.
Well, this is a brother I've seen this guy for about 2 years walking up and down State Street. He's got to be about 6'3". He can move. And if you look at him, he does not come across like he's hungry. You could say he's homeless to some degree, but I just wanted to capture him and capture him in motion. The hard part was to keep up with it because he wouldn't stop. He wouldn't take money. But at some point I was able to get him to just pause for a moment, and I snapped a lot of pictures. So to be honest with you, this is a picture that is more intuitive than anything else because I couldn't get him to just stand still.
Okay.
But I also wanted to put, you know, the African American colors in there. To some degree, I wanted them in there. And as you look at the picture, you'll be able to see some of it. Like you can see like red and green. And then when you come over here with the braces, you can see red, green, and black, and it's repeated. You know, I kind of wanted to have that part of the.
You see a little movement here because there's a shadow of him as if he was coming there or had already been there. So you definitely see some movement.
Well, not only that, it becomes a reflection of him through the glass. Because
Gotcha.
as he was walking, I saw him, but I also saw a reflection of him in the glass.
Okay, okay. So Jesse, these next pieces, you've got, I don't know if these individuals are a couple or if they're just two individuals, but tell us a little bit about these two.
No, they're not. This is, once again, just a young woman. I was interested in her braids, and I just wanted to portray them. I just wanted to show them. I thought they were very creative the way she did that. This guy here, this is, I mean, obviously this is something that comes from my gut. You know, this is called Nightly News Entertainment. This is part of a series that I'm working on. And unfortunately, this is the way that that our country see us in the nightly news. This is what they're portraying. They're showing us as being, you know, angry, upset, or whatever. But, you know, and I just want to put this out there to make the obvious even that much more obvious.
Yeah.
This is not how black people are. This, unfortunately, this is the way that our country, a certain segment of our country, want to portray African Americans for whatever reason. It could be to sell newspapers. It could be able to get your attention to watch the news. So I wanted to bring this out. I wanted to show this.
So something else just hit me that I didn't ask you about, and that is when you hung the show, one of the things that you wanted to see was you didn't want all of the pieces hung into a frame. You wanted them loose and hanging. Tell us a little bit about your philosophy in terms of why you didn't want it all kind of tacked down or in a frame.
You know, whenever you do a drawing, in my opinion, whenever I saw a drawing, it was always in this typical frame and a mat, and it was pressed against the wall. To me, that was boring as hell. That's not what I wanted. I wanted this to appear like, you know, I just finished this piece in my studio. This is the way I look at the artwork. So I wanted to flap around. I wanted to flop.
Okay.
You know, could I have put it all against the wall? Yeah. Could I have framed every one of them? Yes, I could have. But it's just something that is aesthetic and natural for a piece of work to just be, you know, pinned on the walls and let part of it just flop around. I can't explain it, but if this was totally against the wall, it just gets boring for me.
Okay. Well, I wanted to address that because I know the people who are looking, you know, and listening today will wonder some of those questions. So I'm, you know, trying to make sure we attack as many of the issues or thoughts or questions that people might have. I really want to...
Before you go on, though, and that's a good point, because if I sell it, I'm going to frame it.
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
Yeah, we will frame it then because, you know, I want to protect the edges of the work. But if they wanted to show it this way, that's up to them. I'm good either way.
Right.
But the frame, at least of my work, if they ask me how would I like to see it framed, I like to see it framed with no obstructions at all.
Okay.
Let it float in the space that you place in the work in.
Okay.
Okay.
So this piece closest to the window here, are you able to get a good one? Okay. This is a powerful piece, and it sold right away. When you told the story, it just resonated with the individual who purchased it. Tell us a little bit about who this is and what you were capturing.
Well, I'm gonna be real honest. I'm gonna miss this piece. It's,
Okay.
Not only is the whole show is on her shoulders, but African Americans in general, our culture, everything is on her shoulders. This woman represents, in my opinion, all the African American women that has came since her. She has endured humiliation, brutality, rape, you name it. She has endured that. You can see the character in her face, just in her clothing. I wanted to do a piece that was post-slavery, but only maybe 10 years or 15 years out, no more than that. And she came across just like that. Same way with the simplicity of the hat. And you'll see, as we talk about Mothers of the Church, it's still built upon that. But what was really intriguing is that I feel blessed that I was able to talk to my great-grandmother. And my great-grandmother used to eat tobacco. You know, they had tobacco, and they would spit that tobacco into a platoon. Sometimes they would hit it, sometimes they didn't. But if you look at her lips, that reminded me of her lips. That texture, the strongness, the roughness of those lips in there. I couldn't do it again if I tried. It was just something that was in me when I worked on this and when I worked on the picture in general.
The iconic women of the church, the sisters of the church, the women with the beautiful hats. Tell us a little bit about this particular grouping and series.
Well, I tell you, I was, you know, I'm sure I'm not the only African American that knew about Mothers of the Church, but I was raised by these women. You know, if you in church at all, especially in small churches, if they have any more today, Mothers of the Church ran the churches. They ran it all. And I was always intrigued by the different hats that they wore and how they would just start singing. They didn't need music or anything. And I mean, they would be in tune. And that has always stayed with me all my life. You can pick any of them. I mean, I'm in love with all of them, except I wanted to put a younger woman in here because she's a potential mother of the church. So I have her in there. And then I have the older one. So you got a different mixture here, but of generations, but it's primarily of of the older generation.
The beautiful hats, the crowns of glory that these women, which was so common at a time period when we were growing up. And I'm not quite sure if they're still as common today in the churches, but they were so significant to us. And so this series is amazing and certainly captures that sense of pride and beauty that these women had, and their pride in their hats too, in their beautiful hats. I mean, you know, each Sunday there was something different, there was something unique, and so we see varying styles of these hats, and I can just picture them, and I can picture the women wearing them. So this is an incredible series as well.
But you know, to go back on something that you were saying is that I'm not sure you're going to find them in mega churches. You might find them, but they might not be as vocal and stand out as much if you're in a 3,000, member church. But I had an opportunity to go to a church downstate in East St. Louis, a small church. And man, that's where I photographed some of these images. And that's what reminded me of my youth. So they're there, but I'm not sure where you're going to find them in a big city. I'm sure there's some small churches that's still left in the big cities where you can find them. But
certainly in Chicago.
Oh, yeah.
We certainly have quite a few smaller churches. Well, we've got every size, something that meets the needs of everyone. So,
well, this is a potential mother of the church, except she's a young millennial. And I mean, she's really getting caught up into the music and the church itself. And you can see that she had a hat on and it came off. And so she's just putting her hands on her eyes, you know, almost out of embarrassment. So it's pretty much what you think it is.
okay.
You know.
So I'm going to move over to see this next piece, which is something that certainly resonates. And it's also one of the only pieces that's done on black paper. And tell me a little bit about this piece.
Well, this is called the Yellow Negro in America. So, you know, I'm interested. You know, I was just interested in the European look of this image. I was going to model for this. I wanted the yellow folks to get their due lately. So I did this piece. I say, okay, maybe I'll model for this. I say, nah, I don't have the features that I really want for this piece. But I was able to find a head that I was interested in.
Tell me a little bit about, you've got this red streak. It's almost like it's fire or something. Is that?
Yeah, that's just part of his beard, you know.
Okay.
I just thought that was interesting to put that on there. That's a little bit of acrylic paint with pastel on there. You're right, I don't do a lot of work on black paper, but black paper is very intriguing because you have to think in the reverse as you work on it.
Okay.
You know, it's like,
Well,
like an X-ray.
Oh, okay.
It's like an
Okay.
X-ray. You see the image in white on a black background.
Okay.
So as you work on this, your midtones, which is your grays, become the reverse to show the different tones in the head and the modeling of the body itself.
Well, when I looked at it, it was so much gradations and movement. I could see it really well on the black paper. And did you use white charcoal and gray charcoal?
No.
Okay.
All I used was white charcoal.
Okay.
And the gray tones that you see is coming from the black background itself. No, I forget the name of this group. It's with Gerald Levert, the Dramatics. And I used to always like listening to these guys because their music is always moving. You got 3 or 4 guys and they all singing different things and they in harmony, but they're not in harmony. But there's always something that is going on in their music. And I wanted that same thing with this. When you made that comment that it moves in this space, and that's exactly what I think. And I think that way in all my work. But in some pieces, I can really keep things moving where you don't get too bored. I mean, after you looked at this for about 3 or 4 months, hopefully you'll still find something to say, oh, wow, yeah, I still see some energy.
Okay. So I want to go upstairs and leave our Dr. Burrows gallery and go upstairs because we've got more work to see.
Okay, let's go.
So Jesse, we're on the second floor now. We're in the Couture Gallery, and a lot of these pieces are reflective of your take and inspired by the homelessness problem in America. And you actually brought to the show some graphics. Tell us a little bit about why this moved you, what you were thinking about, and why this is so important for everybody to be aware of.
Yeah, well, here's the thing is that, especially when you come up here, I mean, even downstairs with the exhibition downstairs, but especially up here where we're dealing with protesting and empowerment, but we're also dealing with homelessness and black wealth. And I don't want you just to come up and just look at pictures. You know, I'm not just doing pictures. I'm trying to highlight what is going on, especially in the African American community. This is just a small segment of what's going on. So when you do get a chance or an opportunity to visit the Southside Community Arts Center here, make a point to look at this chart. And especially when you look at homeless students on the rise, and it breaks it down like Chicago, the North Cook County, Grundy County. It breaks it all down and it shows you the different percentages of the increase and decrease of homelessness of students in Chicago. And then when you come down to the latter part of this, you can see where it's the deep poverty for the family type, as well as black wealth, which is barely existence. And as a lot of us know, the black middle class is pretty small.
It certainly has shrunk over these last several decades. With that in mind, let's move to the first piece here. You had us post here, being homeless is being barely visible. And when I think about a lot of these pieces up here, I think about how you captured people that often others don't see.
Yeah, yeah, and this is a guy that I call Walking Down the Street. I've added a few things to him. And then once again, if you notice, it's going to be exaggerated. You're going to see a small head, big body, and that's just the way I work. You're also going to see American colors. You're going to see red, white, and blue. And as far as this, you know, it could be many things, and I don't want to tell you what to see in this. I'd rather for you to use your own imagination. One thing that I will point out is the red nose. And the red nose kind of, you know, it influenced me by what was going on in Spain, in Caledonia, which is a small part of Spain. It's almost like well, it is a town. And they're trying to annex themselves away from Spain. And one way that they protest, the protesters in Caledonia, is that they use these red noses. And the red noses kind of upset the powers to be. And I said, okay, you know, that sounds pretty good because these guys are living on the edge of our society, and I wanted to draw attention to that, so I put the red nose on him.
Okay. So Jesse, this piece it says a lot. Tell me a little bit about this piece.
Well, this is Cried Throughout the Ages. And she's pretty close to the woman that I was showing you downstairs of Endurance, which the show is kind of based on. And when you look at post-enslavement, from when I did that one piece, Endurance, coming forward, so just tack on another 90 years, and we're still demonstrating, we're still trying to get respect. That black woman is still trying to get respect. And I can't say enough about African American women because our total foundation is built on her. You know, she's the one that has taught us how to survive in this society, how to deal with the police, how to deal with brutality. But yet at the same time, she still deals with brutality, humiliation. She's been raped. I mean, you name it. And here we are in 2020, and we still have her protesting. And that's what she's about. And I wanted to show that exaggeration. I wanted to put her in the presence of right now, 2020, with the fingernails, the way it's painted, the iPhone, the reflection of her. It's just all just in this particular moment. And once again, I wanted to constantly show movement with the lines itself with this piece of work.
Powerful piece. Let's go over to this next set of, looks like a duality here. The struggle, passion, and inner strength of Jesse's subjects is undeniable. This was written by Shelley Wright, the curator for the Wright House. Tell us a little bit about this piece.
Well, once again, this is part of the series that I was talking about downstairs, the nightly news entertainment. And once again, this is the same thing. You still see that red.
So Jesse, this piece, I see another red nose. Tell us a little bit about it. It has the Wright House, the struggle, passion, and inner strength of Jesse's subjects is undeniable. Tell me a little bit about what this piece represents.
Well, once again, this is part of the series that we saw downstairs about nightly news. I still wanted to put that red nose there of protesting and bringing attention. And with here, you're gonna see collage. I wanted something off the street. And you know, I often would add collages to some of my work just to make it more dramatic. And this is how we are seen on TV. You might find one image that is on the screen as you watch, meaning the TV, and on the other side, that image, but it's still another negative image of that one.
Yeah.
And it's not that I want to be all negative, but I am trying to highlight what and how this white-centric, I shall say, mainstream view us. It could be for a lot of different reasons. And a lot of times it's their perception of what African-American males are about.
Okay. So when we turn and we take a look at these two pieces, so we've got a young man and a young lady as a security person with, again, the exaggerated fingers and the yellow in her hair. Tell us a little bit about this piece, these pieces, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting. I was downtown and I just saw this security guard, you know, pointing to this young man, not this one, but just people in general, telling them to move on. You know, you can't just hang around in front of the bank. And I just like that. I just like that she's at work, she's a security guard, but she dressed like she's getting ready to go to a bar. And I just thought that was interesting. You can look at her fingernails and, you know, she's all ready. She's got her hair all back. She's got an earring on. And she's looking at this guy who's homeless. You know, I just thought that whole contrast between the two, you move on, you know, why?
So I want to keep moving because I want to cover as much as possible in this film. And you've got another piece which looks like a protest piece.
Yeah, this is called Awkward Encounter. And I really thought that this was interesting. Let me just say too that a lot of what you see is like, it's a stream of consciousness for myself. It's me trying to understand, not only myself, understand what is happening in the country, what's happening with African Americans themselves, and the contradiction that the system itself has brought upon us. And here we have a man or a policeman who is dressed, his whole being, his job right now is to, honor and to protect that system that this young lady is out there protesting against. And he knows she's right. But what can he do? It's his job. He's working. And he also knows that when he takes off that uniform, he becomes a victim to the same thing that this system is oppressing him about, and that she is out there protesting again. And if you notice that she is trying to get his attention, she's looking directly at him, but he's looking past her because he knows she's right. So I just thought that was a very interesting contradiction.
The dichotomy of this interaction.
Yes.
So the final couple of pieces that we want to take a look at are certainly graphic representation of some homeless individuals that you've come across.
You know what? I don't see these as individuals,
okay,
pieces. I see this as one big composition. But if you notice, this is the elephant in the room, is obesity in the African American community. And I wanted this to be seen. And in today's environment with this pandemic in 2020, a lot of our folks are dying because of obesity, poor health, poor eating, and it's just something that we have to just say, and that's what I see. I got these guys off the street. They all are homeless. I have spoken with each one of them. They were selling streetwise, but I just see them all together. I see a guy here who has a cart on his head. This is the same cart that he sits on. Mm-hmm. So that could be a metaphor for many things. He sits on it because he might be tired, maybe he's too heavy. But it's interesting that you can take that cart and put it on top of his head, and it comes across like this could be a sense of imprisonment. So I thought that was interesting at the same time.
I was saying imprisonment, and then even on some levels protection, because we don't know how someone is thinking when when you put a crate on your head, So do I feel protected? Do I feel imprisoned? What's the takeaway? And then the average individual walking past that person is probably trying to quickly look away because they're not trying to see all that he's in the middle of going through.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, you're right, you don't know what they're thinking. And even when you talk to them, your question might be over their heads because they're in a different world. But that's okay. My job is to help bring their visibility to the forefront. And at the same time, I want to say who they are, what race they are, but not make it so obvious. So you'll see like little colors of brown, like for example, little brown here. The mind is going to pick it up and say, well, they African American. Well, you're right. That's what I'm trying to portray. That's what I'm putting out there. Especially when you look at this guy here and you can look at his face and you can tell that I use acrylic wash on the face just with the texture. And that's the only way that I thought that I can show a certain type of an aesthetic in his face and in his eyes, a certain calmness, but at the same time, a certain sturdiness, and that's what I look for. And then at the same time, he's looking away. There's another guy looking away. He could be looking away for a lot of reasons. It could be an embarrassment. Sometimes they know. They know. They don't want to be reminded that what he is or what he has become. Okay. So that's the way I view that.
I gotta stop to see who this is. Hold on. Oh, yes.
Good. And now that we're doing that, can I take your picture? Yeah. It's really nice. I know it.
So Jesse, this has been a pleasure having the exhibit up. I know we've got one more show, and that is on December 19th. And that is scheduled through our Eventbrite because we're trying to stay true to the pandemic and only allow a certain number of people in at a time. But the show has been really well received. It was important to me that we film the show and get a chance to talk to you directly because of the pandemic. So many people who would have wanted to see this show couldn't come and they couldn't be a part, but it will live on when we unveil it on our website. So that's exciting for me that people will have a chance to hear your voice, have an upfront about what this was about. So I want to say thank you for being a part of the Southside Community Arts Center, for trusting us to have this solo show with you, and especially in the middle of this pandemic. I can't think of a more unusual time that we've gone through, but I think that having this show, listening to you talk, sharing this with the individuals in the community is super important. So thanks again for being a part of this show and trusting the center.
Well, no, thank you for even allowing me to the opportunity to show my work here. I've always wanted to have a show here. I mean, it's a historical place, so why not be here? So I am very much appreciative.
Thank you.
For sure. Yeah.
So with that, I want to close out this show and say thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you'll follow both Jesse Howard on social media and the Southside Community Arts Center. We're located at 3831 South Michigan here in Chicago. We hope once this is all behind us that you'll feel free and comfortable to come in and see our shows. We've got a whole new lineup beginning in January with launching with Fahim Majid, and his show is going to focus on coming home to the Southside Community Arts Center. So we're super excited about that. But please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and soon LinkedIn. Take care and have a wonderful evening.